You are now live.
Okay, thank you, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting of the January 13th, 2025 Land Division Committee meeting to order. Second, land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that the County of Haliburton is located on Treaty 20 Mississauga territory and in the traditional territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa Nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations, which are Curve Lake, Rama, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog Island, Bosley, and Georgina Island First Nations. We acknowledge a shared presence of Indigenous nations throughout the area and recognize its original Indigenous habitants as the stewards of its lands and waters since time immemorial. Next item on the agenda is adoption of the agenda. Can I get a mover and seconder to adopt the January 13th agenda? Moved by Liz Danielson, seconded by Patrick Kennedy. All in favor? And that's carried. Next item on the agenda is appointment of a chair. And what I would like to ask, are there any nominations for the position of chair? Member McKelvey.
I would like to nominate Liz Danielson for chair.
Do we have a seconder on the nomination? Member Kennedy?
Yes. Yes.
Member Danielson, do you accept the nomination?
I do, and thank you.
Okay, all in favor? And that's carried. And next item is appointment of a nomination of a deputy chair. Can I get a nomination? Member Kennedy?
I nominate Bob Snyder.
And can I get a seconder?
Second.
Yep. Chair Danielson, Member Snyder, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, thank you very much. I'll accept the nomination.
Okay, all in favor? And that's carried. And I'll turn the meeting over to Chair Danielson.
Thank you. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof today? Hearing none, we can move on. Oh, could I have a mover and a seconder to adopt the minutes of December the 9th? Member Donald, seconded by Member Snyder. Thank you.
Be it resolved that the minutes of the Land Division Committee meeting held December 9th, 2024 be approved as printed and circulated.
All in favor? That's carried. So we'll move into the application for consent. The first being Goslin, or is it Valaquette and Peltier? All of the above.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, the second names are the granting lands. So I'll proceed. I'll proceed with our brief presentation and share screen with committee. Okay. I trust everyone can see the PowerPoint.
Yes.
Okay, I'll see if I can get this working. Okay, here we go. Application H4924 is for 1469 Ferguson Road in the municipality of Highlands East. And what this application will do is grant a right-of-way over an existing driveway that actually encroaches over 1469. This driveway does provide access to 1459, which is the neighboring lot to the east. Just by way of context, the property's on the north shore of Little Glamour Lake, which is this red star here. So it's just north west of Torrey Hill. And just to zoom in a little bit further, the two properties are here, and they're on the privately maintained portion of Ferguson Road on Little Glamour Lake. Sorry, there we go. So just using the air photo, and there were also site pictures attached to the staff report, which I hope were relatively easy to understand. It was a little bit of a maze when I went out to visit the site. So what you see in the black dotted line is where the entrance and road or driveway for 1459 actually comes in. And then it deviates to the east and then kind of hooks around and provides access down to the new cottage. And I did find a survey monument out there, so we were able, with assistance from Mr. Ferguson, to figure out where everything was on the property. But what will happen is a surveyor will prepare a reference plan with the exact location. So this is approximate based on the site visit, but we will have a reference plan at some point in the near future to verify everything. So Highlands East Council endorsed the application. There were no comments received from the public. Hydro One had no concerns, and staff recommendation is to approve the application that is subject to the conditions in the report. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Question from the committee. Member McKelvey.
Just one of the pictures showed the 911 number, and it shows 1469 and 1471 on. I'm just trying to figure out where 71 comes into play.
So through you, Madam Chair, so 1469 is the granting lands, which is why I posted there. But the driveway for 1471 that I could see from the road looks like it was in a similar situation. It came in over 1469 and then went to the cottage property next door. So the area here, it seems like the lot lines and the actual driveway locations are all a little bit skewed. It wouldn't surprise me if we see more of these applications on this particular road in future.
Member McKelvey, are you still, okay, you're there.
I'm
You're
here,
up.
sorry.
I guess I know it's kind of a question without a real answer. I just wonder, given the way things are set up, why they wouldn't just build their own driveway instead of going through this process. I guess the answer would be it costs more to build a driveway than it does to go through this process.
Yeah. Yeah, good question, Madam Chair. I do have one participant once we get to that stage. Her name's Julie, and I believe she is one of the owners of 1469, and she did put her hand up to speak.
Okay, if you want to bring her in to speak. If you, Julie, if you could turn your audio and visual on.
I'm trying. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay.
There
I
should
don't
be
know what's-
there should be an option at the bottom left-hand corner that
There we
says-
go.
there you
Figured
go.
it out.
So if
Sorry,
you could just, give us your first and last name and your association with the application.
Yeah, my name's Julie Peltze and I'm the owner of 1469 along with my partner Andre. Just to answer your question, why is it not easier just to build your own driveway? So the fact of the matter is that the Goslins did build their own driveway. And what happened is when their contractors put the driveway in, I guess they didn't realize the property. And it wasn't until after it was already in, the Goslins realized it was over our property. We didn't even notice because in our opinion, it looks like it's on their property. So that's what happened. And at that point, it's easier to do this than to try and go and figure out the driveway. Plus, they're all very steep roads. So there might have been a reason why they had to just meander it a little bit. So that's why.
It was not a criticism, just kind of a question.
Yeah.
Things come
And it's
about.
the same with our driveway for 1469 and 1471. It's a shared driveway, a shared road down into our driveway, and then it splits off into each of our own driveways. So
Thank you.
there's just not that much room. That's all.
Any questions from the committee members? Is there anyone else who wished to speak to this application? Hearing none, could I then have a mover and a seconder to receive the staff report related to the application and grant provisional approval? Oh, I see Mr. Goslin's on screen.
Hi there. I just popped on in case there were any questions. That's all.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Goslin? So then again, I'll ask for a mover and a seconder to grant provisional approval. Moved by member Kennedy, seconded by member Donald.
Be it resolved that the Land Division Committee of the County of Haliburton received the staff report, excuse me, related to application for consent H 4924, and that the Land Division Committee of the County of Haliburton grant provisional approval of application for consent H 04924, subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report. Member Kennedy,
Yes.
Member Snyder,
Yes.
Member Donald,
Yes.
Member McKelvey,
Yes.
and Chair Danielson.
Yes. That's approved. Okay, the next application is by Weber to develop a new rural residential lot. On the
Through,
road.
yes, through you, Madam Chair, to committee. So we do have a representative today who has a PowerPoint presentation for this application. So in lieu of my presentation, maybe we can hear that presentation and just to avoid duplication.
Okay,
Okay, and so this application is for H 5024 Weber, which is at 1627 Old Donald Road in the municipality of Dysart. And this is to create one new rural residential lot. And just one item, I did receive written correspondence from the Mr. Tyler, who's adjacent to the property south of Old Donald Road, who had no objection to the application. And if we could bring in Jonathan from Morgan Planning and Development.
good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
What I'll do, Jonathan, I'll share screen and just let me know when you'd like the slide to change.
Sure, sounds good. I also have it handy if it's easier. Right. Yeah. So thank you, everyone. My name's Jonathan Pock. I'm a senior planner at Morgan Planning and Development here on behalf of our client and owner of the property, Chris Weber. And the subject property that's subject to the consent application is 1627 Old Donald Road. Next slide, please. Subject property is shown on this slide here. Denoted by the red arrow. It's on the north side of Old Donald Road and is generally located south of the of Haliburton village itself. And you'll note that it's a lot that's bound with other rural residential lots on either side. Next slide, please. The subject property, as mentioned, is located on the north side of Old Donald Road. Has approximately 182 meters of frontage onto Old Donald Road and has a lot area of approximately 2.1 hectares and is currently developed with a single detached dwelling that's serviced by a septic and a well. Next slide. This is an aerial image of the subject property. Just like to draw your attention to the lower right-hand corner or the southeast corner, which shows the existing or location of the existing single detached dwelling. And the septic system, which is generally located in front of that dwelling, as well as the existing driveway entrance. And as you'll note, there are existing rural residential lots located on either side of the subject property outlined in March. Next slide, please. So just to give some background, the municipality of Dysart passed the council resolution at the end of November supporting the proposal. There were no public comments or received during that application, and there were recommended conditions that were attached to that provisional approval. As Mr. Kozlowski mentioned, there was a public comment received from the neighboring property owner to the south, Their concerns or questions rather were related to minimum distance separation, which is a calculation that was provided in our application submission related to the separation from livestock facilities, which the member of the public has on their property. And we've submitted that in our application, which demonstrates compliance with respect to the separation requirements to that adjacent livestock use. The purpose of the consent application is to create one new infill lot onto Old Donald Road. And on the following slide, I'll show you a sketch of the provisionally approved or endorsed rather lot configuration. Next slide, please. So this is just a sketch that was included in our application. You'll note the retained lot is included in blue on the right-hand side, and that would contain the existing dwelling, existing septic and well as the existing driveway. And the proposed severed lot is shown in yellow, which would facilitate the use of a future single detached dwelling that would be serviced by private services. Next slide, please. Just from a land use planning perspective, it is designated, the subject property is designated rural lands in the county OP and is zoned rural residential in the municipality zoning bylaw. Next slide, please. Included in this afternoon's agenda was our planning justification report, which addressed the applicable planning policies and demonstrates compliance and conformity to those planning policies from a provincial, county, and municipal perspective. And I would also note that the proposed severed lot does comply with all minimum required lot area and frontage requirements, as well as the existing development on the retained lot complies with the required setbacks and other applicable zoning provisions. Next slide, please. In support of our application, we did have a environmental impact study completed. The trigger for this was in the municipal documents. There was a small pocket of adjacent of a wetland area. So we did complete a scoped environmental impact study, which was included as an attachment to our planning justification report. But in summary, the EIS concluded that there were potential for some habitat of endangered and threatened species, as well as a small wetland pocket. They would be contained on the retained lot and not on the severed lot. The EIS did include some recommended mitigation measures, and those were related to erosion sediment control measures, such as silt fencing, permeable paving design, should any be proposed on the severed lot, and vegetation timing windows, so when construction could occur on that severed lot, as well as lighting and fencing requirements. As part of the endorsement from municipal council, there was a condition attached to that approval, which requires a development agreement, and those mitigation measures that were recommended in the EIS are proposed to be achieved and implemented through that development agreement that would be registered on the title of the severed lot and would need to be adhered to and registered prior to a building permit application being issued. Next slide, please. So just to conclude, the proposed consent application seeks to establish an infill lot onto Old Donald Road. The severed lot would be intended to be used for a rural residential purpose that would be serviced by a septic and a well. Municipal council has endorsed and supported through a resolution for the application, and we are agreeable to the conditions. We've reviewed the staff report for this afternoon and have no objection to the approval of the application. And again, through our application, we've demonstrated conformity and compliance with the applicable planning policies. That concludes my presentation. If there are any questions, be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Do committee members have any questions for Jonathan? Hearing none, could I have a mover and a seconder then to receive both the staff report and Morgan's report, and grant provisional approval? Member McKelvey, seconded by Member Snyder.
Be it resolved that the Land Division Committee of the County of Haliburton, excuse me, receive the staff report related to application for consent H 05024, and that the Land Division Committee for the County of Haliburton grant provisional approval of application for consent H 05024, subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report. Member Kennedy,
Yes.
Member Snyder,
Yes.
Member Donald,
Yes.
Member McKelvey,
Yes,
and Chair Danielson.
Yes. So provisional approval has been granted. Thank you, Mr. Pock.
Thank you, members of the committee, and I'll let you continue with the rest of your agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next application is by Barry to create 2 new rural residential lots in Minden Hills.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll share screen. Okay, so we have 2 applications before us, H 05224 and H 05324 for the Berries. Properties located at 1627 Old Donald Road, or sorry, that should be Tom Bolton Road, Township of Minden Hills. And again, it's to create 2 new rural residential lots. Generally, the property is located at the Red Star here, just north of Lachlan, and just outside of the Haliburton Village, about 10 kilometers southwest. Just zooming in a little bit, property is 95 acres, and it is fronting on Tom Bolton, which is a year-round maintained road. And it's just east of this kind of rural residential cluster here on at the corner of Lachlan and Tom Bolton. So just some of the details. So the first property, H52, severed lot 1. So this property has 107 meters or 350 feet of frontage on Tom Bolton, and it's got 2.04 hectares or 5.05 acres of land area. There is a driveway that goes into that property. It's shown in the site photos in the agenda package, and it goes back into the property where a development envelope outside of those wetland buffers exists, kind of in the south portion of that lot. H5324 severed lot 2, almost the same size. It's got 340 feet of frontage on Tom Bolton and 5.07 acres of land area. That property also has a cleared area and an entrance off of Tom Bolton, and then that driveway kind of, if you follow my cursor, it kind of meanders onto the retained lands and then provides access back into the back part of the property. The retained lot itself has 620 feet of frontage on Tom Bolton with 86, just under 87 acres of land area. And one of the notes in the report was that the retained land will require an entrance at the time of development in the future. And there is sufficient area between that creek here and the buffer. So it would just be located west of the entrance onto severed lot 2. So this property also did have a scoped environmental assessment submitted with it. And in this case, it particular identified wetland features in the north part of the property and the south end of the property, and some small water course features along with 30-meter buffers to those features. So the other aspect of the EIS was regarding deer wintering, and there are recommendations in the Riverstone report about no more than 3,000 or 3,500 square feet of cleared area to protect that tree cover. Bev Wicks is here in attendance today if there's any specific questions about the deer wintering or the scoped EIS. Just in summary, we did not receive any comments from the public. Hydro One had no concerns, and obviously Minden Hills Council has endorsed the application. And staff recommend approval subject to the conditions in the planning report. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Adam? Member Snyder. You need to turn your volume on, Bob.
Yep, sorry, thank you. So if I understand correctly, on the one lot, there is a road that travels through the setback areas to a building lot area. So because that road was pre-existing, it can be improved through that area, or is there a restriction on it being improved because it goes through setbacks?
Through you, Madam Chair, so that road was identified in that environmental study, and I could perhaps defer that question to Bev Wicks from Riverstone to comment specifically on it, driveway improvement.
Okay, if you want to bring her in.
Sure.
Good afternoon. You heard the question? I don't hear you. It looks like you're off mute, but you need to turn your volume up. No.
That work?
Oh, we can hear you now. You're a little bit faint, but we can't hear you.
You can hear me? Okay. You just try to talk louder.
There you go.
Okay. So typically, if there's an existing driveway, unless there's going to be substantial upgrades to that existing driveway, or there's going to be a large amount of development associated with an existing driveway, we're not concerned about the potential for impacts from that driveway. So if it was to access a subdivision where you had 20 or 30 cars going in, so a big change in land use, we might have suggested relocation of a driveway, but in the case of a single residential dwelling, we would leave it as is. And I apologize, I have a bit of a hoarse voice, so hopefully that answers the question.
Are there any other questions for either Ms. Wicks or for Adam?
Question for
Member Donald.
Adam, the previous application required a site plan agreement for the new created lot. There's no requirement for these two lots. Is there a reason for that discrepancy, or?
So through you, Madam Chair, so I'm just looking at the conditions here. Minden Hills does require a development agreement to be registered on these two lots, plus the retained lot to follow the Riverstone mitigation recommendations. There is also another condition here from Minden Hills that the properties will have to be rezoned to reflect those features that Riverstone's identified, plus the buffers.
So that would require the site plan agreement for the site plan building lot.
Yeah, what I think what Minden Hills and maybe Dysart call it is like a site development plan. So it'll be a more detailed drawing that shows where silt fences and things like that are going to go.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on the application? Hearing none, could I then have a mover and a seconder to receive the staff report and grant provisional approval to the application? Members McKelvey and Donald.
Be it resolved that the Land Division Committee of the County of Haliburton received the staff report related to applications for consent H05224 and H05324, and that the Land Division Committee for the County of Haliburton grant provisional approval of application for consent H05224, subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report, and that the Land Division Committee for the County of Haliburton grant provisional approval of application for consent H05324, subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report. Member Kennedy?
Yes.
Member Snyder?
Yes.
Member Donald?
Yes.
Member McKelvey?
Yes.
And Chair Danielson?
Yes. So that application has been approved, and thank you, Ms. Wicks.
Thank you.
So is there any other business that you have to bring forward, Adam?
No, I don't at this time. For next month, I think we have the Grass Lake consents coming.
Oh, well, it'll be
So,
interesting.
so be on the lookout for a lot of appendices to the report. But those will go out in the next couple weeks to the neighbors, and I suspect that I'm going to receive comments.
Okay.
Um,
Member McKelvey?
Can we get some of these reports ahead of time then? So that it's not crammed into a short period of time for us to actually review it?
So what I'll try to do, I'll try to get those reports done ahead of time for this one in particular. But what I can do is um, maybe send you a Dropbox link to all of the documents that were considered by Dysart and then by the county, because the county had to approve that Dysart plan. So I could probably even send you a link to the council meeting at the county when we approve the Dysart OPA, and it will have all of that material attached to it.
Okay, that's fine. I looked at that material when the OPA came, so I'm probably fine then. I just didn't know if there was anything new from that.
Yeah, the only thing that you will get new is my planning report. But this one's a little interesting because all of the planning heavy lifting's been done. We're just the committee's role in this case will be to create the lots. But all the development, the rezoning, the official plan amendments all been approved. And it was appealed, obviously, and there was a settlement at the Ontario Land Tribunal. So the form of development has actually been reduced on those lots. It's not as I think it was like 88 units, and that's gone down to I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but it was like close to half of that.
Mhm.
But I can send you all that information as a separate link.
Thank you.
I did have one question, and I'm sure it's related to an application that will come up in the spring. When environmental impact studies are done, is there a particular time of the year where they need to be done, or do they need to address like all 4 seasons? Would there be any difference in the environmental impact study?
That's a good question, and I'm just looking at. I wish Bev was still online. Through my experience, so I'll give you a couple of quick examples. So if it's a deer wintering study, it's got to be done between January and the end of February. Doing that type of study in the spring when the snow is melting or before the snow hits, just really isn't useful. A 4 season study that you mentioned, that is something that you might see on a very large development, like Grass Lake or like a plan of subdivision where they have to look at deer wintering and they also have to look at fish habitat, which is only in a certain window during the summer. When they're looking at site evaluation reports, such as the Barry property, they did look at deer wintering, but they also have fairly good mapping and they can see what features are on site. And I know that Riverstone does visit the site and they walk it. So if it was to look at wetlands, water courses, and it was the dead of winter, what I know of from talking to Riverstone over the years is that they'll just tell the applicant, we can't go out till May. We need to go out when the flora and fauna is out. So it is interesting because sometimes you'll see, we'll get an endorsement from Dysart, let's say, in November, but the application doesn't come to the Land Division Committee till May because they had to wait to do that study.
Okay, I'm sure it'll come forward, but there was one member of the public that was, insisting on 4 separate environmental impact studies for the 4 different seasons. And
Yeah,
gosh, I don't know if that doesn't sound like the norm to me, but
yeah, and just from my experience, in other places I've worked, when it's a 250 unit plan of subdivision with new roads and grading and drainage, they have to look at it 4 times. Individual lot creation, it's very scoped, so they can probably see what they need to see because they're looking at a very small area.
okay. This would be a case of a hobby farm.
Oh, okay. I think I might know a little bit about
Yeah, you might, you might.
that.
Yeah, anyway, I don't believe that the application will be coming back to us for quite some time, so, but I just was curious about that, because one comment was, they wanted 4 different, studies, and I thought, nah, it sounds like a bit of overkill, but I didn't know.
Yeah, it's very, very site specific. It just depends on what's on the ground out there and how it relates to what's around it. That's why sometimes you'll get an environmental study and it's a small wetland pocket. It doesn't affect anything else in the area. It's not connected to anything else. Those will be quick reports.
Okay, thanks. So, if there's no other business, is everyone good with the February 10th date that's being proposed? That sounds good. So, could I have a motion to adjourn? I know you'd all like to stay. Member Donald, seconded by Member McKelvey. Thank you.
Okay, be it resolved that the January 13th, 2025 Land Division Committee meeting be hereby adjourned.
All in favor? That's carried. Thanks, everyone.